This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's corporate cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. ramp.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
My guest, Tricia Brown, has her own YouTube channel, Exploring the Paranormal with Tricia Brown, on YouTube. And she's also been a guest on several shows featured on YouTube. You can check out her information and find out more about that on her Facebook page. I want to pick up the last time I spoke with you. We didn't cover there were blood drops. That was the one thing that I remember when you and Manny were staying, I think, house sitting, and you found that on the floor. So bring us up to speed with that, because it's like, oh, there was a red flag, a red herring, a loose end, and the blood drops. That's it.
Yes. Okay. So in my experiences that I've been having on the paranormal realm side of things and the mystical side of things, this one was very unique. And so what happened is, on the side, I do animal house sitting, and I was staying at a house, and I talk about it on my YouTube channel, Exploring the Paranormal with Tricia Brown. I talk about it there too, so you can check it out. I film inside the house, so you can see what I'm talking about. So I watched 2 dogs and 2 cats at this particular house, and that particular trip, I was also asked if I could go over and do like a meet and greet with another house where she had 2 dogs and 2 cats. And so I went over there. I drove over there. I had my dog and my parrot with me, and my parrot stands on her perch when I travel with her. When I don't bring her indoor cage with us, she hangs out on her perch. And these animals all get along really well. And I put the 2 dogs in their crates when I leave. They don't wander around in the house when no one's in the house. They're in their crates. And my dog is just wandering in the house. My dog and my parrot have been living together for 17 years or something. And the cats are just super fine with Manny. I think they don't see her like a bird because she's a big macaw. And so I left the house, locked up the house, and drove over to this other house. It was like a 20-minute drive. And while I was there, she's showing me around it was like a double wide trailer on this land. And she's showing me around, and something just all of a sudden out of the blue, I asked her, have you ever had any experiences in this house? I mean, I don't ask everyone that. I have occasionally, but for some reason I did with her. And she said, I have not, but my friend saw a guy standing in the kitchen. I'm like, really? Okay. And so she thought it was a guy that lived there before she did, because that she saw some mail from a guy. So she could be just thinking it's him, but it could be someone else. I don't know that part. So I was like, okay, that's good to know. So I felt like the vibe of the house felt fine to me. And I had mentioned about my dog and my bird, that I was going to bring them over to the house. So she knew that she was aware. I try to be as, open and honest as I possibly can with people when I'm being at their house, living at their house, taking care of their animals. So I was there for half hour, I'm not sure. Drove back to this other house with the 2 dogs, 2 cats. And I walk in the door, and on the ground, on the tile floor, next to Manny's perch, and between her perch and the crate are like 3 drops of blood, like the size of, let's say, dimes. And I was like, what? So let me say that my parent is really good. I mean, she's been held by kids over the years. I cannot tell you how many times. Many, many times she's been held by kids, like standing on their hand, little kids, 2-year-olds, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds. And I call, the adults, the grown-ups. She's a little bit more shy around them. And so more recently, she's been more okay with if I hold her and I say, you can pet her tail. But she's very particular. She has very good boundaries when it comes to not wanting someone reaching out and touching her. I can do whatever with her, and there's only been a couple times where she bit where it punctured the skin. And I mean, she's 26 years old. So in those 26 years, only 2 times where she bit where it punctured the skin, and the way that it bled was like drops of blood. So I think it's possible that the spirit that was at her house heard me talking about my bird and wanted to come check her out and possibly reached out, and she was like, I don't think so, pal, and bit him. Because, I mean, I've tried to make sense of this. If it was a human, if it was a person who somehow got into the house, there would be more blood around. I would see more blood. It was literally just in this spot, like as if somebody popped in and popped out. I was like wondering if it could have been from the cats. The dogs were totally in their crates. There was no like blood inside their crates, as if somehow they were somehow able to reach through it. I mean, that's not possible. So I finally saw the cats. If it was a cat, the way that cat, it would shake its paw and blood would splatter. There was no blood splatters anywhere. So the only explanation that I can see is that this man, the spirit man, who must be pretty earthbound, reached out, because there was a guy that I was seeing for a little while back in 2016, and he was on his way to come pick me up, and I put my bird on the top of the fence, and I went in for just a quick second, and when I came back out, he was there, and I happened to look down at his fingers, and they were dripping blood. It was just the same. And I was like, it was obvious to me that he stuck his hand in her face,
Yeah.
And she didn't like it. And I'm glad she has good boundaries. She's very gentle, but if it's something obviously where he was she didn't want him to do, she let him know. So yeah, I think that's what happened. Spirits can pop in and out and come go when they feel like it. And do you have any other explanation? I cannot think of one.
I have no idea. No, it's just, I was curious about that because you didn't have any more information. I wondered since the time that we spoke, if you found any more background about that building.
Yeah, I asked the owner about if, the owner of that lives where the drops of blood were found. I asked her, have you had any experiences here at the house? And she said no. She said the only thing that she, for her in her mind, was that when they first moved in, that on the mirror in the master bedroom, someone had used their finger and wrote, "I trusted you." Like, at least I'm adding the inflection, but
yeah.
And so that's it. That's all she had to say was that was a little bit unique. All of a sudden you get out of the shower and you see those words on your mirror.
That happens. I was asked to do an impression investigation. It wasn't an investigation in my mind. It was just go in, see what I felt at a house for someone who was having some extraordinary experiences and had nowhere to go. And so I went in and checked out the house. One of the things that was happening for her, handprints on the mirror on a regular basis in the same spot. And it was a handprint. The thing about that house was that this person was also having some really intense psychological issues. And as I went through the house, she had mirrors on every wall of her bedroom. Now, feng shui, no, that's not. There's a real problem when you surround yourself with mirrors. We won't go into that, but that's a no-no. The other things that were happening, she had 2 kids. In one room, the youngest had experienced with a playmate. And in the other room, which is the one where this entity seemed to gravitate, on the wall, there were religious icons and things like that. It wasn't that the child was into that. It was just those were pictures that filled the walls. And the person who lived in the house would hear music, flute music, coming from, there was a central location downstairs, and hear that. The whole thing about this and this area that house is in was what predated the space. And the fact that she was having some tremendous issues. I went into one room and I could feel, and I was told that there had been a big problem here. I'm trying to be a little generic, okay?
Yeah, right.
And that this at this point, when I described what the problem could have been, I was given a very, very explicit explanation, suicidal, okay, and didn't go through with it. But the entities in the space were basically trying to divert this person from doing anything harmful.
My God, I knew that somehow. I knew that's what you were going to say.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so not only that, little apports in the back of the car, there would be these little dried flowers, a little collection. And I was shown these things, material, physical objects that were being given to her to help her through the crisis. And there were other people around as well, but not when these things appeared. And so in just going in and saying, is this happening? Does this happen here? Does this happen here? And this is what's going on. And these things need to change. And are you okay? Those kind of things. Because it wasn't that it was negative. It was because these things don't happen. And so the person is not only in a very conflicted space, but then having this other paranormal activity and intense paranormal activity, which is then making things more, what the heck, but it stopped her. So that was the important thing, was it was a diversion to get her outside of this is the only reality. And maybe I do have help. And absolutely, absolutely. So the handprint on the mirror was one of those, you can't miss it. And then with other things that were happening in the house, the audio sounds, and again, the apports, the things that were the flowers and little gifts, like a kid would give somebody. And
from the helping spirit.
Yeah. So all of that is real. It's just that when you're not prepared for it and it doesn't exist in your vocabulary because your religion doesn't have that kind of importance about things that are metaphysical, then you have no frame of reference and no background. And she was absolutely mind blown that this is happening. And she was also encouraged but frightened because of, well, what if it was bad? And it wasn't.
Did you teach her the difference so that I think I really like teaching people to understand the difference of how it works. I think some of the religious stuff, they were taught if you feel good, it's bad. If you feel bad, it's good. But that makes no sense.
Well, for one thing, the mirrors were a problem. Okay. And that there's more to that, where this is, it's a very materialistic focus and there's no way you can live up to that unreal expectation. So there was a perfectionistic thing going on here that had nothing to do with the metaphysics. The metaphysics involved, the paranormal stuff that was happening was basically intervention from the other side. And you can only teach somebody so much, because when this is completely off the charts, off the radar, it doesn't exist, you have to take baby steps. And baby steps said, someone's trying to help you. And so she needed to deal some things on her end of it before she could ever go into this stuff. And that's, you hear the near-death experiencers talking about, I went to heaven, or I went to hell, or I went to, wow, I was out of my body and I was nothing and I was everything all at once. And then it takes them 10 years to figure out what the heck happened. That's this kind of stuff. If it doesn't exist in your framework, your background, your mind, then you have to educate yourself, and no one can do that for you.
Right. Yes, that's true. I mean, you have to want to do the research, yes, or be able to hear what someone's saying to you. And it can take some time to process
and act on it.
I've had experience. Act on it. Yes. When you were talking about that, even though you were being vague, I was definitely able to pick up on what you're talking about. And I was feeling that, there's some sort of some bipolar energy going on in that space, where the helping spirits were there, almost like shamanic type, or maybe indigenous energies. Yeah. Were there to be caring and do what they could try to do, is what it sounds like.
It was a cry for help. And it got her to call a friend, who then called me and said, hey, could you just check this place out? Because their explanation of it was, it's haunted, something's happening, should we be afraid? And so when all of that came down, it had more to do with getting the person who was in inner turmoil to figure out a few proactive steps that she could take that had more to do with having her become more positive about her life and everything in it. So this was a massive intervention from the other side, and we'll call the other side, that's just, the best frame of reference we can put it in right now. They're right beside us, and we don't see them, but they are helping spirits. They are relatives. They are non-relatives. They are people who've been here thousands of years before we ever knew this place existed. And, so interdimensional, all sorts of stuff that we get help from. And we don't have the language to explain all of it. But in this case, it was so traumatic for her, on top of everything else, that she finally said, help.
The spirit guide, guardian angels, they were all tag teaming. All right, I'll try. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I definitely was thinking that same thing, that when somebody tells me that they're having a lot of not good things going on in the house, I do my best to teach them about their own attraction abilities, their own energies in their own bodies, and how to raise their vibration by thinking better thoughts and feeling better as best as you can. And it's super important to care about how you feel, and really understand that there is direct correlations between what you're feeling and what you're going to attract to you. It's just how it works in this universe.
One of the things that I found that is important, and this is at another house that we were having some big paranormal stuff, and this was the dark stuff. Well, in the basement was basically an altar to everything. You're talking Freddy Krueger, all of the complete spectrum of negative and spooky, scary, and demonic. I hate using that term, but it was like an altar. The books, the movies, the visuals, that this front and center as a space of, here's our playroom. Well, guess what? There was a whole lot of playing going on. And that's also a problem, because you are the people who allowed that were facilitating this. And there are thought forms. There are all sorts of other entities that are gravitating to that energy, and the mindset that says, I'm having fun, I like this, and it goes darker and darker. And eventually there are other things that happen. Yep. It has everything to do with putting out the welcome mat. talking with Tricia Brown, exploring the paranormal, her YouTube channel.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
Tricia Brown, exploring the paranormal, spooky, cryptid, Sasquatch, and a whole lot more.
I think that people associate scary images with Halloween. Halloween is fun, wee! And so they have this thinking that these scary things are going to be the same equivalent as Halloween, wee! And no, it's like you would not want a person who cut up and hid a body somewhere to be hanging out at your house. You wouldn't have common sense. I think it would be great for people to start really, really understanding that, okay, so there's these humans out there that can be a mixed, buffet of people.
Yeah.
And then there's this understanding that there are very, very low vibrational energies that can start from somebody's really low vibrational thoughts that are thought about very strongly, and then they're using their visualization, they're imagining, they're not happy, they're not feeling good, there's a momentum that's pulling them down, and then the more they think about it, it's going to pull them down more, and then they're going to start thinking not good thoughts, and then it's going to attract that. It's the law of attraction. It's a momentum. And so when you're in a space of understanding the different levels of emotion, like a chart, like the very lowest is despair and depression. And then it goes up higher, anger, revenge, and then disappointment up higher, worry. And then hope is a spot to get to, and then positive expectation and passion, and then appreciation. And so what I have been studying and learning is that the easiest emotion one of the easiest emotions to purposely, whatever word you want to use, conjure inside yourself, well up inside yourself, this emotion of appreciation, because it is such a high vibration. It's at the top with love and empowerment and knowledge and bliss. And so you can spend time thinking about things that you're appreciative for. And when you do that, you're training your vibration up higher. And when you do that, then it's going to start attracting to you better things. And through physics, metaphysics, those lower vibrations cannot be in the same space, and it'll veer them away. So it's a practice, though, just like, anything. It's a training your thoughts. And so that's what, when this woman that was having a hard time, helping her know that she has the power within her own self to, and it's sometimes when you're not feeling good, it's having to really keep at it because you want to. You have to kind of say, okay, I want to test this out then. I'm not sure I believe any of this stuff. So how about testing it out or doing an experiment, learning these teachings, applying them, and looking for the evidence of the positive experiences happening? You might as well test it with positive experiences out there. There's these amazing beings that you can connect with. And I feel that the reason why they weren't recognizing it is because they were so, they got caught up on all the TV shows and what is, this is all that there is out there. And there's angels and archangels and ascended masters and the fairy realm and the Sasquatch people. And and your loved ones and your spirit guides that are there with you throughout your life, the helping spirits. I've experienced the helping spirits when you're out on your travels and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so low on gas. Oh my gosh, how am I going to be possibly making it to the gas station? I have like 10 miles to go and my gas tank is registering that I only have like 5 more miles in my tank. And then you sit there for a second, you get centered and you breathe for a second. And then all of a sudden you just have this knowing, like you're told, just go left, enjoy your drive, notice what you see, look around you, enjoy your trip, you're going to make it. And then you make it on negative gas because they helped you. So it's a choice to what are you tuning yourself to? And I have done my best to study this myself and apply these teachings myself, because I've had experiences that were like sometimes not great with people or the spirit realm. And I really wanted to have my life be the most mystical, magical, wonderful, adventurous experience, fun, where you're attracting all the people that are amazing in the world and you can all play together and have a good old time.
Well, I think part of it is you have to also experience the negativity to understand it's there and go the other direction. There was one time we were looking at a house and my husband, who had hearing issues, he said, could you go find out if it's for sale? We had watched it for some time and there were people in the house at that point. So I went in the house, just normal, not thinking anything about it, not doing any projecting of any kind, going in. And what happened was, this is the house that the relatives were selling because the person who had it was deceased. And this is the day they're all together. And I got hit with a whammy that it was a headache that was at least 3 hours, if not more, long, intense migraine. Ow, 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 because I was an intruder. And so I was slapped back psychically, which I did not know was going to happen or could happen because I'd never gone down that path before. It was all peaches and light. And that was a wake-up call to ask permission. Don't just barge in somewhere and assume that, the door's open. And that was a huge revelation for me, that there are a lot of things going on around us that if we were more attuned, then we would be, in some cases, forewarned that this is not the day to go there.
Very good example. Yes, exactly. You had your guard completely down. You weren't thinking anything of it. And then,
But that's life. That's life. And that's they're living in a place where someone committed suicide, didn't know about it, had no idea, all sorts of paranormal stuff going on. And finally realizing, after getting a lot of feedback about this being who was there and actually having the being in my body trying to get my attention, not knowing that could happen either. I thought that was just a movie thing. And finally realizing the reveal from neighbors, that's why we got such a good deal on it. That was that the person had committed suicide. He was not happy and he was still there. And it took a while for me to figure out how to deal with it and then how eventually to help him leave. And he still left angry, but at least he left and he had support. Yeah. The other side came and picked him up. And that was a learning curve too. So some of this, the more exposure you have, the more adept you can become at figuring out how to deal with it.
Exactly. And I've gone through that same process too. And, like when you were talking, I was like thinking about some of my own, experiences like that. You're right. Like this universe there's contrast. So a lot of times the way that we learn, the way that we know what we do want is because we have an experience that we don't want. And the way that it works is, the moment that you have an experience that you don't want or don't like, there is an immediate vibrational form of what you do want available to you right then. And then if you allow yourself to go towards it, then it'll manifest. And so that's kind of fun to know that.
The other thing is saying I'm sorry, is for, asking for forgiveness and saying I'm sorry. And they even have a prayer, the Ho'oponopono prayer that asks forgiveness. Yeah. And that's a regular practice of saying I'm sorry or saying I love you. one way or the other, I was sorry, and I was just mortified that, oh my gosh, I did this, and I had no intention of intruding. And the Native Americans also have a giveaway ceremony. It puts you to do these things, puts you in a different space energetically, and they're cleansing routines and cleansing rituals that basically express gratitude and appreciation, which was your word, and valuing and respect for other life forms and life energy. And in return, you're also recognizing that you have respect for yourself. So these kinds of things also, it helps to practice as you become more aware of the paranormal elements that are a normal part of our reality. And we are experiencing more of that now. People are talking about it, finally.
I know. Yes. I agree with you. I've gone down the road of learning how to honor the land and how to I introduce myself. You experience it. You walked into someone's house and they're like, excuse me, what are you doing? Did you even knock? You just come walking into my house. Yeah. And then you felt it. And, I have had where I was on the side doing vacation rental cleanings for this couple of their vacation rental house. And then one of the girls asked me to come help her at a house that she was doing, where people had moved out, like a rental. And she asked me if I could come over and help with the energy of the space. And she was really good about not saying all the things, which is very helpful for me, because then I can just pick up on what I'm going to pick up on, and I'm going to pick up on it in the most beneficial way and to help, because also I have that intention of that too. And so we were in there cleaning, and I brought over a music. It's a hymn. It's called Kadosh hymn. It's a Hebrew word. And I played it throughout, just let it be on repeat, and it's really nice. Imagine sort of a choir where the men are singing Ode Vode and the women are singing Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth. And it's just the music is very peaceful and it's very high vibrational. And I got it from when I was in my spiritual studies school for doing my color and sound therapy. And it's played inside the healing sanctuary at the school. So I was playing that and walking around, helping her clean. And I was walking around this couch in the family room. And all of a sudden, I just spouted out something like, I'm sorry that you were feeling bad. I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was like, I'm sorry that you were feeling bad, but it happened. You are here now. You are where you are now. And you need to go, or it's time to go, or, go into the light and progress on. You have more to go. It's okay. And then it's like, after a little while, it was like he was not there anymore. And she was able to feel it too. And that was what it was. It was this man that took his own life. And I wonder if he slept on that couch or something, because I definitely was picking up on. And so then she told me afterwards the story. And that's also really verifying. And I was very happy that she asked me. I like being able to help. It's nice to be able to know that I was able to help someone by whatever words I felt guided to say in those moments, to help him know that I acknowledged he was there, and to give him a little bit of tenderness and compassion, but to also let him know that it's done. You did it. And so now you get to move on and progress to the next journey, type thing, and hopefully inspire them to. And then I've also learned to, if I feel guided to it, to call in the transition angels to help. Or sometimes I feel guided to call in Archangel Michael if I feel like I'm not sure what is all here. I'd like some extra support. And then they can do their part too. So there's just so many ways to prepare, raise your, have your vibration be light so that you're able to see the situation from the most beneficial position as you can. And then I'm going to also say quick too, that there was this time where me and a friend were walking around in the woods and there was this abandoned house, and we walk in the door and I immediately felt this feeling like what you were saying, like, get out of here. What are you doing walking into our house? And I immediately was like, okay. And I left, and he was just wandering through, like completely oblivious. I was like, okay, hopefully you're going to be all right by the time you come out of there. So
there are people who this does not register with, and that they're very basically materialistic and concrete and black and white. There's no gray area at all. It's black and white, and this in some ways is a protection. They can actually live in a space that has that has an entity like that without ever having any interaction, because that world doesn't exist for them, period. And their thoughts aren't bringing it on, because either they're focused on their job, they're focused on their relationship, their family, other things. So they are not drawn or drawing that kind of energy. And so just to say that, just because you live in a house that has a lot of dead energy or a horrific past doesn't mean that it will immediately gravitate to you, because that is also, again, thought forms. And if you are in some way, shape, or form attractive and you're doing that kind of thinking, then you bring it on. But if it doesn't even register and you've got other things going on in your life, you can be in a space like that without being negatively influenced. We're all different, and that's the cool thing about this.
That's so true. That is such a good thing to mention. Yes. I think that's why sometimes, like, when you hear these stories that the men, the husbands, the dads, they're like oblivious. They're like, because they're focused on their work or they're focused on whatever. And, it made me think about my dad. We were walking outside in the neighborhood, in the local park, walking my dog at night. And I had been seeing some interesting lights in the sky for years in this area in Saratoga, California. And I would notice that it would be a single light moving in a certain rate of speed across the sky, not the flight patterns of any of the airplanes in San Jose area. And one day, we were walking and I look up. I'm like, Dad, look, this is what I'm talking about. Look at that. And he looked up and he just looked down. It's like he pretended like he didn't hear me. Not going there. He wouldn't go there with me at all. Yeah. So that's exactly, you're right. I mean, it makes sense. That's a good point.
That was his safety. It's like, okay, not going to go there. It doesn't exist. I'm fine. Life is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we grew up. Like, don't look at the elephant in the room, and it works for him.
But that's part of this too. If you're watching television, a lot of the series out there, I have seen a couple of them lately, ghost series that focus on going and tire kicking and proving that there are ghosts and it's haunted, because the stories all say that it is, and they've got documented evidence that, yes, this has been going on for years, possibly decades and more. But of course, the Ghostbuster team wants to go in and say, now we've been there and we can prove it. Right. So after the fact, then you find out that one of them might have had some issues and always seems to track demons. And there's always a negative element. That's what they want to go find, is how bad things are. And it isn't always a demon stirring the pot. Sometimes it has to do, like exactly what I talked about earlier, is paranormal 411, help, please, or 911, or whatever, however you refer to help me. That is part of it. It isn't meant to scare anybody. It's meant to call in the medics and say, get this person some help. And instead, the paranormal shows want to go in and find out who's stirring the pot and the fast track to the dark place. It's exactly. Like, So it's a common theme, which I find very interesting. It's marketable, it's sellable, but maybe eventually they'll get some shows out that actually have to do with why sometimes the deceased members of our crew, our group, are trying to get our attention, so we'll go a different direction and we'll stop doing the same old, hit your head against a brick wall negative stuff and start looking for better results without repeating the same pattern.
Yes, and part of it is, I totally would agree with you. There's this same format that's been going on over and over and over again. And I think what I'm noticing that there is some shifting, like the show 28 Days Haunted. I was super excited to see that they had mediums there to help put some puzzle pieces together, and that to then help the spirits, to then help them to carry on with their next journey. I would love to see that more often. And yes, to have people start doing their own research on the differences between earthbound spirits, and then once a spirit crosses into the light and then they can come back and they now know, they've evolved and they can be of help. It's like they can become a helping spirit to you in the world. And so to learn what that means, like what are some things that they're doing? I just did a couple days ago, a friend of mine was saying that someone, a non-physical person, is waking him up in the morning, like basically saying, stop, it's time for you to get up, come on. And I think it might be a relative. Yeah, I think it might be a great grandfather. And so he has to do his own, work or his own research to see what makes sense to him in that. You just said that exactly what I was thinking about for him is that, there's this help out there. I had that one time. I was sleeping and all of a sudden the bed shook, and it woke me up. And, there are these, and so learning about that, there are these helpful beings out there, and they go up lighter and lighter and lighter in frequency, in vibration. I mean, I don't know, I've been saying this more and more, that I'm not sure why, somewhere along the line, it seems like around in the 90s, when that there's this needing to prove it. It's already been proven. So us people who already know that it's been proven, we already know. And then the people who don't believe, so what? It doesn't make it not true just because they don't believe it. And then, okay, so, there's also this format, and I think it's just for TV, right? It's like the producer says, okay, homeowner, you need to say these exact words and make it a little bit dramatic for TV of the fact that the reason why you called us here is because we really want to know if there's paranormal activity. It's like the same thing over and over again. And then, and so here's something too I want to add. When you were saying that you don't like using that word, I agree, the D word. Mm-hmm. You can say things like, and I learned this from a psychic self-defense book, that he uses the word neg, like negative, but he shortens it and says neg with a capital N. Yeah. So you can call it something else. You can use like a code word so that you're not drawing attention to that you're talking about it or giving it any sort of energy whatsoever. I mean, think about a really annoying person that literally has no social skills. Like maybe someone who's, whatever reason, they're lacking in social skills. And so you could say to them, please leave me alone. I don't want you to come any closer. And they just are oblivious. And then they still keep coming closer. They still won't leave you alone. And so the metaphysics behind it is that's resisting. That's like pushing against. And so when you push against something, you're obviously still giving it attention. Even though you don't like it, you're still giving it attention. You're still talking about it. You're still giving it energy. And so the best thing to do is literally ignore it. Like that saying when you're a kid, the bully kid, ignore him, he'll go away. I mean, like I have really used this in my own life. Like you sometimes have to be just super strong. You literally Don't give it attention. Let those vibrations slow down and stop. And at the same time, bring in as much positive energy as you most possibly can in your own life. Do all the things. Eat super healthy. Take out all the bad stuff out of your diet. Bring in essential oils, nice smelling scent that has vibrational abilities that is going to permeate your space with positive energy. Turn on the lights. There's all these different techniques that you want to just try them all. Just do all of them. It's like, see what works. Then you can narrow it down too. And then you bring in someone like Wendy that can pinpoint things. And then when she tells you what to do it.
Hey, I want to mention that you also have some stuff on YouTube because you've been doing a few shows recently. One, Grizzly is on the Hunt. That one picked up. And then you've got one for the Sasquatch. That was just recent. The Bigfoot Michigan Rob.
Yes, that was today.
Yeah. So Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And then your own channel too.
Yes, Exploring the Paranormal with Tricia Brown. And that's just me it's partly just for my own documenting my own personal paranormal experiences in my life and my more recent years, the Sasquatch people experiences, but also too, if someone wants to go, if they like listening to these experiences, it's fun, I think, to hear other people's experiences. You can learn some things. I know that as I've watched different documentaries and listened to people's experiences, it really has helped me realize my own experiences. And then we are then adding to the understanding of what the beings are about. Yeah.
And you have a master's in metaphysics?
I have a master's in metaphysics, yes. I went to a really special school, Delphi University of Spiritual Studies in Northern Georgia. And I wanted to go there because I had been already for years in, you can call it psychic development. I like to really call it inner senses development. The inner senses. We have our 5 physical senses, and then we all have our inner senses. And I was having experiences of like precognition, of knowing things, that just downloads of information being taught by guides, by the helping spirits of the world, my most highest, wisest, most knowledgeable self helping me through intuition. I wanted to really develop these so that I can use them for myself in my life, for fun, for other people, so that I could go to these sacred locations on the land where there's a building there, which I used to call them ancient ruins. But when I went to Chaco Canyon and learned that the energies, the beings, the non-physicals, they don't consider some of these sites as ruins, that they're still active in a way. And so just to get to go to these sites, and then you can learn from the space directly on your own. And that's really fun. Through your own personality self. We're here bringing spirit into matter through our own uniqueness. And that's why it's really important to really, truly be yourself, because then you're going to be able to add something unique to the new teachings. And so I have been really enjoying getting to go to these locations that have multiple unique paranormal and Bigfoot experiences, UFO. Maybe the geology is really interesting there, or the settlers were near there, or on and on. The native people. I really like to go to places where the ancient people of the land, where they lived. I feel that they picked their spots to live. Yes, because maybe it's near water and there's lots of fertile ground and all that, but I feel like they picked their land to live because of the special energies of the land. And then they would have their ceremonial lands, the sacred land that they would go to for that, and then where they had their mounds. And so I really have been enjoying getting to learn from them, and then studying shamanism, studying the teachings of the ancient people, of their understanding the reciprocity that happens when you bring to the space your energy, and you're saying to the space, thank you so much for letting me be here. That's how I feel every time. Like, I'm being allowed to go there. And I look around me and I acknowledge it. I will leave like a hair as an offering. Like, I literally pull a hair out by my neck, like I have long hair, pull a hair, leave it by a tree or something, and say, here, like, I'm offering a gift of myself. And then there's places where you don't want to do that, and it's also learning that. And so I've done things like that too. And I feel from, the understanding that whether it's a person in physical form or in non-physical form, they have the same human understandings, like a social connection that you can have with someone from the non-physical. And as I've been on my travels, I have gotten to connect with different people from different states, different time frames. I got to connect with a really nice man that he died in the late 1800s, and he was so thankful that I was appreciating his house and that I was noticing the detail in the house as opposed to tuning in to what happened to him and his wife when they died, Mm-hmm. And then, meeting a woman in Montana who I got there in July and she had died in April. And I feel that me and her happened to come upon each other as I'm driving around exploring. And then I feel she helped me find the right guy that let me borrow a camper trailer. And then, I was walking through this camper trailer and he let me borrow it because I was trying to get across the border to go into Canada, and I couldn't because of the COVID thing, the quarantine that was going on, the shutdown of the borders. And I was amazed, like, this is amazing. And I'm walking through the trailer and I'm opening the drawers and I'm looking around and I'm like, this is amazing. All of a sudden I felt a presence of a woman standing behind me, walking with me, kind of like, imagine like where your friends like, come check out my new house. And you get there and you're walking in front of her and she's like, isn't this amazing? And you're like, yes, it is. It was like that. And then I talked to the man who let me borrow the trailer and I talked to him about it, and he was blown away, like that he knew that it was her. So these things, if you're tuned in to the higher frequencies, you can help these different energies out there that, let's say you find out that later on that, their personality side of themselves, who they were in this lifetime, whatever it is, it doesn't matter because they've now transitioned, and then you can still connect with them in a very high emotion of appreciation and kindness and compassion. I don't have all the answers how it all works, but it somehow helps them feel like they can move on.
Hey, we're going to have to check out now. I want to, again, the links will be in the description for the show, but your website, YouTube, Exploring the Paranormal with Tricia Brown, and it's Tricia Brown. And Manny is there in prominent. Manny is so cool.
You can hear her in the background?
No, and just the visual you've got of Manny eating spaghetti.
Oh, yeah.
You're on Facebook, so anybody listening can connect with you there. But I like the joke you got from Marjorie. It's Margie Johnson Day, and she posted on your page a little joke. Bigfoot is sometimes confused with Sasquatch, yet he never complains.
Oh yeah, I love her. She sent me. I met her when I was in Montana, and she sent me a really cute Bigfoot keychain, and I love it.
We're going to have to cut off now, but I really appreciate your explorations and the sharing that you do, because that's how we learn.
Yes, and you too. Thank you.
I also have a blog, and that's talkingtonightlights.com. You can check that out. Check out Tricia's YouTube channel, and thank you for listening.